Welcome to the Global Citizen Life podcast. Today on the show, we have David Andrews, and David is from Visa in New Zealand. So, anybody who's interested in moving and relocating to New Zealand, this is the podcast for you to be listening to today. So, welcome, David. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, Sally. I hope people can understand my mixed accent. My mother thinks I sound Australian, and I think I sound English, but I'm originally English, but have been in New Zealand for 30 years now. So yeah.
That's quite a while to be there. So tell us a little bit about the process or the options available for people to move to New Zealand.
I suppose, I'm a licensed immigration agent, and I deal with people all over the world. Some people want to come to New Zealand for a holiday. Some people want to come and study. Some people just want to come for a short-term visit, and some people want to make it their home. So I work across the spectrum of different people that want to come, and each one has its own quirkiness, and every case is different, just depending on the client's needs and age and education and health. For most clients in Northern Europe, Canada, UK, US, you can come here on an e-visa if you want to come and visit. So you just need to log on and pay $12 and get an e-visa. So that's the easiest way to come, and how most Americans, Canadians, and UK people would want to come. But if they want to stay for longer, main options are get a job, seek employment, and then move on to residency, and then we move on past that onto retirement, and then we move on past that to sort of entrepreneur and investment visas. So there's quite a lot of options depending on what stage people are at in their lives.
Excellent. So let's start with the e-visa. So maybe I'm coming to New Zealand. I'm not sure. I want to check it out. E-visa is great. How much time does that give me in New Zealand?
3 months.
Okay. So that's a nice amount of time for people to come check things out and decide if New Zealand might be a good fit for them.
Yeah, I mean, New Zealand is a very large place. We have two large islands, North and the South Island. They couldn't find an easier name for them, but and the North Island is probably, I would say, 3/4 of the population live on the North Island, and only a third live on the South Island. So I live on the South Island, and we have about 1 million people down here, and that's not many people at all.
No,
and
no, it's nice
everybody
and
else lives
quiet.
up north. Yeah, it's very peaceful and very beautiful. We have the mountains and skiing and rivers and lakes, and it's nice. But it depends on what you want. I mean, if you want to come here as a tourist, you want to sort of start at the top and work your way down. A lot of tourists come and they rent a camper van and they drive down. Some of the younger tourists will come on a working holiday visa, or they can come for up to a year, and then they can sort of travel from north to south, earn a bit of money while they're being tourists, and make their holiday a bit easier because they're getting paid to be over here. E-visa is the most popular one because it's easy to get. You just have to go online and fill out a form and pay $12. Just be careful where you go. There's a lot of scammers out there who will charge you a couple of $100 to get an e-visa when it's only $12 on the official Immigration New Zealand website.
Well, that's good to make sure. Go to that official website and get that e-visa there. What if then we wanted to maybe spend a bit more time there and get a job, maybe 1 to 3 years? So if I wanted to move to New Zealand for roughly kind of 1 to 3 years, but I'm going to need a job, how would that process work? And how hard is it to get a job to get that visa to stay in New Zealand?
Well, we have the visa for the working holiday visa, which as long as you meet the criteria and age, health, it's quite easy to get. Next stage is the hard one. Really depends on skills in demand. We have a skills list, tier 1 and tier 2 lists, and these are for the in-demand people that we want to have in New Zealand. Doctors, lawyers, nurses. We have a large shortage of medical professionals. So just say you were a doctor and you wanted to come here, you would be on the tier 1 list, and you would get a straight to residence visa. So
Okay.
you get a resident visa off the bat. And a lot of people, especially the high professions, they want to know that if they're making their move to New Zealand, once they get here, they've got permanency. They're not on a temporary visa. They're not going to be kicked out after a few months. So these on the tier 1 visas, they will get a resident visa straight away. So that's great. They can bring their family here. They can buy a house. They know that they're settled. Next step down, we have the tier 2. The tier 2s are people who are not so semi-skilled, but still in demand. And they will go on a work to resident visa. So after they've been here for 2 years working in a skilled role, they can then apply for residency visa. So that's the two main roles for getting residency. If you want to come here and just work for a few years and then leave, we then have the accredited employer work visa. In New Zealand, if you want to employ migrants, you have to have accreditation with the government. Once you receive that, you can then recruit migrants. We have to go through the process of showing that there are New Zealanders to do the roles. Then we can recruit migrants for specific roles like construction, factory processing work. There's a lot of sort of lower trades where we still need a lot of people. And those people will traditionally, once they qualify, get a 3 to 5 year visa, accredited employer work visa. And if they earn certain salaries, then they can bring their families as well. But they don't really have a path to residency. So it's, they can work for 2 or 3 years and then they have to leave. Unless during those 2 or 3 years, they've jumped the threshold into more skilled employment.
Okay. And then you also said there is, let's go over to then the business one. There's the business investment visa.
Yeah, so we've got 2 categories. If you are a business person and you have a business in overseas and you want to bring that business to New Zealand, you need a credible business plan. You need to submit that. And if that's approved, then you can come here and as a visitor first and look around and find a visa or find a business you want to invest into. That will give you some time to come and do that. And there's specific criteria about the type of investment, the funds, how many New Zealanders you're going to employ, what the profitability of the business. So you have to have a strong business case, which will get looked at. And if that gets approved, that's quite hard to get. A entrepreneur business visa. It's one of the hardest ones to get, unless you got a really good business plan. You can't come over here and say, I want to open up a pizza shop.
That cafe is not going to cut it.
No, if you want to come over here and say, oh, we're in a tech industry and we want to manufacture parts for rockets, and we're going to employ 30 staff, then you've got more chance of getting that startup. The one after that is the entrepreneur visa. Sorry, is the investment visa, and that is for people who are wealthy and they've got $5 to $15 million to invest, and that gives them, they're basically buying a resident visa. They put their funds into New Zealand, then locked away for a certain amount of time, and for that, depositing those funds, they get the right to have residency. So the rich Americans and Canadians and the Brits who want to come and have a bolt hole, build a nuclear bunker in the South Island, something, then they can come and do that if they've got enough money to throw around.
Okay. And what about a retired couple or retired individual?
Yeah, we have a retirement, like a sort of grandparent visa. If you have adult children who are already in New Zealand and they meet a certain income threshold, they can apply to immigration to bring their parents here. If you have no ties to New Zealand and you want to retire here, well, we have a retirement visa, and that is again based on your health, based on your funds. That there are certain requirements about how much money you've got to have, how much money you need to support yourself, a lot of things like that. I can get you to put all the links to those things on
Sure.
at the end of the meeting, or people can just
Mhm.
send me a message and say, this is my plan. Because everybody's different, I generally do a free 15-minute consult and give them an eligibility assessment, because everybody is different. So I can, I look at them and say, based on what you have, this is what you may be able to get. And sometimes there's some curly things in there, like, have you had cancer, or have you had an operation, or have you had criminal conviction, or it's not just we've got money, we want to come to New Zealand. It's there are other
Mm.
things to think about, like your health and previous history. So,
Right. And that makes sense. I mean, most countries would want to make sure that they've got good, healthy people who are not going to, need a lot of the healthcare system, at least not now. Who knows in the future? Like we never know what will happen. And they have the funds to sustain a reasonable lifestyle. And that's a pretty standard thing that most countries generally want. And of course, the cost of living plays a part of that. And I find too, when sometimes when we look up things online, of course, not everything is completely accurate online. And so it would be great for people to give a call, and they can check out those links too, because there may be, as you said, one or two things that are a little bit different that maybe they'll qualify for a different visa than they thought they would.
yeah, I mean, I do a lot of work with Americans, and they think they want something. I'll give you another example. I had a couple from Oman last week,
Mhm.
and they both want to come here, and he's an engineer, and she's a professor at a high school, and based on the qualifications, the wife was more highly qualified than the husband. So it was better for me to apply for teacher's registration, for the wife, and once she's registered as a teacher, get her a job offer as a teacher, because that's a tier 1 straight to residency role. Then she can support her husband on her residency visa application. So sometimes it's looking at, what skill pool have you both got as a couple or as an individual, to come to New Zealand, and we will look at what you've got, and make a good case out of that. Um,
Right.
mm.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so you've been in New Zealand for a very long time. What would you say are some of the benefits and challenges of living in New Zealand?
So I moved to New Zealand in 1990 from the UK. Um, I've lived in the States for 3 years. I lived in Miami and lived in New York. Been to Canada, originally from the UK, so traveled around a bit. What are the benefits? Depends what you like. I mean, if you're an outdoorsy type person, um, where I live in the South Island, we've got the mountains just an hour and a half away. So you like skiing and getting out of the mountains. We obviously have very few people down here. So if you're not into big crowds and you want to get out on the open road, and um, yeah, and property in the South Island, you can buy a decent sized house for decent size, for reasonable money with a nice piece of land. You're not into little shoe boxes. Cost of living can be a little bit expensive because we are an island in the middle of nowhere. Our biggest neighbor next door is Australia, 3.5 hours flying away. So, a lot of the stuff, we export a huge amount of dairy products and meat and fish, but most of the stuff we need, like fuel and basic supplies, we import. So the cost of living can be higher for some people. Wages are generally low. We're not a high wage economy. So the minimum wage is about $22, $23 an hour in New Zealand dollars. If you're coming from you're benefiting if you're coming from UK, US, Canada, your dollar goes a long way, almost 2 to 1 from the
Wow.
UK, and yeah, US as well. So you're better coming here. If you've got a lump sum to come here, then you're better off. If you're coming here with nothing and you're just working, you'll be quite surprised that the cost of living is a little bit high and wages are not super high. But if you're in those tech industries, or you're in those teaching jobs or those engineering jobs, I mean, then you're going to be paid, a fair pay. What else do I like about? What else is interesting about New Zealand? Clean, green, image of. You sort of take it for granted after you've been here a long time, but I just drive through a supermarket and I look at the beautiful mountains as I'm driving on the road and see all the snow. And we're in a small island. I can get in my car in 20 minutes, east or west. I can be at either one of the coasts.
Nice.
So that's quite nice. Kiwis are generally friendly people. Everybody's quite open and will say hello to you walking down the street. That's quite a nice thing as well. Any surprises, any shocks? I suppose I've been here 30 years now. I've lived here longer than I've lived in the UK. So I sort of get blasé about it now, and you don't
Mhm.
realize how beautiful it is until you've left, and then you want to come back.
Right,
Uh,
right.
so
And
that,
I mean, and then some of the things, as you said, like you're in the South Island, so it's a lot quieter and not as busy. For some, that's a challenge. For some, that's a benefit. So
yeah.
it also does depend on what people want for themselves as well.
Like if you go to Auckland right now, I mean, most people want to live in Auckland. 2/3 of the population live in Auckland, and that puts pressure on the infrastructure. Therefore, a house in Auckland, median price is going to be around $1 million plus. Where down here in the South Island, you can get a bigger house for more half the price.
Right.
And the further you go down south, you can get a huge house for the same price. So where you've got dense population, that puts a pressure on infrastructure and properties, and the price goes up. But if you want to live in the big city, then that's the price that you pay. I
That's
don't know why
right.
everybody wants to live in Auckland, but a lot of people want to live in Auckland because there's communities there. There's Indian communities, there's South African communities, but a lot of the Americans and Canadians who want to come down here, they want to come down here and get away from that. They want a bolt hole where they can come to and just retire and have a happy life. And the money will go a long way. They can buy a nice house. You live in the UK and you've got a house worth £1 million, which gives you $2 million. You can buy a house for 500,000 and then live on your savings.
Right, right. Well, that's great. It's definitely I've not been to New Zealand yet. It is on my bucket list of places to visit. And I always hear wonderful, great things about it and how beautiful it is. The only for me a little bit is the location. It's a little bit far from everything. But some people like that, and that is great for those people who do like the more quiet, laid back. I like it temporarily, but then I get bored. So I like to have something where I can easily get to the city and the busy and the craziness, and then I get
Mm.
tired of that because it's just too much, and then to go somewhere that's a little bit quieter, laid back, nature, and then I get bored, so then I have to go back. So I'm kind of at this back and forth, moment right now with life.
I mean, Auckland. to Christchurch is it's just an hour and 20 minutes on the plane. You know, and
Okay.
you can get seats for $60. I mean, it's not. I mean, we have our nearest neighbor, Australia, which is, you know, 3.5 hours flying away, which is not too far. If you want to go and explore, you know, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, the Gold
Mhm.
Coast, I mean, that's plus we have all the Pacific Islands, Fiji, Rarotonga, Samoa. Um, they're beautiful to go in, and they're always sort of in a 3 hour window. Um, and
That's
then
nice.
you have
Yeah,
a
there's
yeah, and then you have Asia. You
Mhm.
know, Singapore, 10-hour flight from here, and sort of gateway to Asia. So there are, you know, we are at the bottom of the world. But there's only one place to go, and that's up. Or
another.
unless you want to go down to, unless you want to go down to Antarctica. But once
No,
you're
I'm
here, there's just so much to do. If you're an outdoors person, or even if you're not, um, there's just it's just beautiful. It's just untouched. It's very nice.
excellent. And how about like you mentioned briefly that the infrastructure in the big cities it gets quite congested, but generally, how do you find are the roads and internet capabilities and things like that throughout Europe? Are there some regions that are better than others, and some where, you know, if you're working remotely, maybe it's not quite as good?
So where I am right now, we haven't got fiber yet, but New Zealand had a major investment on UFB fiber rollout, getting it out to, you know, 70, 80, 90% of the country, and that's still ongoing. Where I am, I'm sort of semi-rural on the edge. I live on a lake, um, and I have Starlink from Elon Musk,
Okay.
and that works everywhere here. So it doesn't matter where you are. You know, I get a very high, good quality internet connection for about $150 a month using Starlink. So you don't have to suffer poor internet. But you know, in all of the cities, if you're living Main Street, you're getting fiber, high speed fiber. So there's quite a big investment in infrastructure and telecommunications. We seem to be a test market as well for a lot of products. So because we're a country of 5 million, a lot of big companies will use New Zealand as a test market for telecommunications and phones and other stuff. So
Okay.
car wise, probably 80% of our cars come from Japan,
Mhm.
imported. Japan has a strict time frame on how long you can keep your cars, and you have to
Oh,
sell them, or they get really expensive to relicense. So after a couple of years, they get huge big boats bringing used cars from Japan to New Zealand. So we have a large influx of 2 years or 1 year, 2 year, 3 year old Japanese vehicles. We don't have any car industries ourselves, so and you also get the European cars, you know, Porsche, Mazdas, and Porsches and BMWs and all that coming, but a bit more
so
expensive.
does the Japan one, because of that, does that help keep the car prices, I don't want to say low, but at least reasonable? Because I would have thought that that would have been very expensive to be importing the cars, but I had no idea that Japan has those rules and laws in place.
Like we import thousands of cars, and I bought a 2016 Mini Cooper recently, a Japanese import. John Cooper Works Mini Cooper. I paid 25,000 New Zealand dollars for it,
Okay.
which is, yeah. So the prices are quite cheap, because there's a huge oversupply of them,
Mhm.
and yeah, you can get a decent car for 20, 25, $30,000.
Well,
And
that's good.
you're talking like 1 or 2 years old with low kilometers, and you know they're Toyotas, they're Mazdas, they're Lexus, they're Japanese cars, which will go forever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right. And what about then fuel prices? Is fuel expensive there?
fuel is right now about $2.20 a liter.
Okay.
So I would say that's expensive. A lot of people are getting on the EV bandwagon, you know, buying the
Mhm.
Teslas and the other electronic cars. I have two cars. I have a diesel car,
Okay.
a Range Rover, which is diesel, and then I have a petrol car. And the diesel is much cheaper than petrol. But yeah, I suppose 220, hard to compare it with because I don't buy it anywhere else, but I don't.
Yeah, and per liter, I mean, we also have to think of, when you say 220 a liter, at first I'm like, ooh, that's expensive. But then I think, okay, well, we have to convert that for wherever the listeners are to US dollars or to pounds or Canadian dollars. And
Mm,
Canada does gas, they go by liter. And when I was there last, I want to say it was about $1.50-ish per liter, Canadian dollars. Um, and in the US, they go by gallons. So it's a bit different there. So it is hard to exactly figure out comparison for each country. But I don't think anywhere in the world, well, maybe like in Dubai and places like that, gas prices are still quite cheap. But generally, North America, UK, Europe, anywhere, it's not cheap prices right now, that's for sure.
One thing you will do when you come to New Zealand, you'll need a car. Um,
Mhm.
and unless you're living downtown Auckland in an apartment in the city, there's you'll need a car. You want to go exploring, and things are sprawled out a bit. You need to get a car once you come over here. But
Yeah.
they're relative cheap. You can pick up a decent secondhand car for under $5,000.
Oh, great, great. And what about the healthcare there? What is that? How is healthcare there? Is it private, public, and how is it kind of rated overall for somebody who's in need of the services?
So we have a state healthcare, so it's all free. Um, you pay for visits to your doctor. So I went to the doctor last week for a visit, and it cost me $50 to visit the doctor, and that's funded as well. Healthcare, if you're sick, you go to hospital, or you don't pay. It's all state funded, and the healthcare is quite good. Sometimes um, we are short of doctors and we're short of professionals. So some of the elective surgery, you can be on a wait list for 2 or 3 months.
Mhm.
But if it's, you're having a heart attack, you'll go in and you'll get seen straight away, and you won't get $100,000 bill at the end of it. So
Right.
that's, and yeah, that's good. Once you've been here on a visa, if you're on a visa that lasts for more than 3 years,
Mhm.
you automatically get healthcare. So
Okay.
you don't need health insurance. Well, I think if you're on a resident visa or a work visa that's got a duration of more than 2 years, I think it is. So you come here as a temporary worker and you get a 5-year visa, you're automatically covered for healthcare. And we
Mhm.
also have something called ACC, which is accident compensation. So if you have a work-related accident, they
Mhm.
will pay for your recovery, and they will pay up to 80% of your salary um,
Okay.
while you recover. And that's taken out of your pay in a way. We pay AC levies, and we pay tax, which covers insurance. But it's not like the States where you go to the hospital and you come out worse off because you got $100,000 bill here.
Yeah, yeah. I think then that the healthcare is probably quite similar to Canada, where um, if you're a resident, we don't pay at all to go to the doctor, go to the hospital, have a baby, in an accident, anything like that is all included. Where we do have to pay is when you're an adult to see the eye doctor, your dental, things like that. So not everything is covered, but it's the same thing. There's a shortage of doctors and nurses, and if you need a hip replacement or a knee replacement, you're not going to pay, but you might end up waiting, I don't know, 3, 4 months, depending obviously of how the system is at the moment. Um, but again, it's kind of that, the thing with healthcare is there is no perfect system, right? Because when we don't pay out of pocket, we're still paying with taxes. Our tax
Mm.
dollars are going to, so generally we pay more in taxes, but it goes to the healthcare system. So we do end up waiting a bit longer, but we will get that coverage that we need. And I know of stories where people in the States, they don't go to the doctor for things because they can't afford it, or like the bill's going to be too much, or if they need something, they have to sell their home. And so sometimes when I talk to people about relocating, and they say, oh, but the taxes are so much higher. I said, okay, but yeah, in some cases, yes, but we have to look at the bigger picture. Right? Like, what is your overall cost of living? Do you need to buy a car? How much is a car? What is the fuel, all the expenses with a car? Your health care. If you're paying six, seven, $800 a month in healthcare in one country, but you're not paying in another, well, okay, your tax rate might be higher, but when we look at the whole big picture, we could be still paying less because of everything that we're getting that is included in that country. So I always say to people, it's things to consider and to look at. We need to have the big picture, but we have to look at it as the whole big picture as to what we're getting. And, sometimes it's just that lifestyle. We like the weather better, we like the area better, we like the people. And it could be even equal, or one might be a little bit less.
I would say traditionally clients from Northern Europe, Canada, US, are better off coming to New Zealand financially. Their dollars will go further. If they've got a pension from their home country, that will go twice what they're getting here. Accommodation is generally cheaper. Healthcare is free, apart from dental and a few other basics. And
Mhm.
cost of living is generally cheaper. We have access to lots of healthy foods,
Yeah.
and we have lots of we're an aging country, so we have right now a huge growth of retirement villages and retirement homes, and that's taking there's a lot of those springing up, and that's another option for overseas people. They can come here and buy a retirement home, where they're going to be in a community where there's nurses and doctors on site, where they can get looked after. Um, and they're building these retirement homes in the nicest places, by the lakes and by the ocean and with all the facilities. So that is uh, somewhere to think about as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is a reason also then too to have nurses and doctors and things and younger people coming in, because as people retire and stop working, those people need to be replaced to keep the economy going.
We have a brain drain. I mean, a lot of my daughter's currently studying law, and she will leave New Zealand once she's got her degree. Um, and med students get their degrees and they leave. They go to the UK, they go to Canada, and they go to the US, where they earn 3 or 4 times. And we're training them to go overseas. They will come back eventually, but it takes 7 years to train a doctor, and then they got my thank you for my degree. I'm off to America where I can earn some real money. So that has a huge impact on the country, as we're training people up and we're not recycling them. The older ones are retiring, the younger ones are leaving. Is leaving a big gap.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's happening in quite a few countries. Um, and it is unfortunate, because also I think sometimes, because I talk to people and they say, I want to move to this country or that country because I'm going to make so much more money. But it comes back to, we need to look at the big picture, right? Sure, the hourly wage, or the salary, yes, it might be substantially more, but how much is the housing? How much is the food? How much is your insurance? How much is all of those things? And there's lots of times where I've talked to people, and it is that I want to go to the UK, Canada, United States, and I always say, but you have to look at the big picture, not just what you're getting dollar wise. Because if you're getting twice as much, but you're paying 55, if you're paying like more than twice as much,
Mm.
you're not saving, you're not ahead. Right. And it's not just the pay and everything, but it's also then the full lifestyle as well. So if somebody was considering moving to New Zealand, Are there certain visas that they need to start in New Zealand, or is everything started outside of New Zealand in their home countries first?
I mean, the first thing that I recommend people do is to give me a call or send me a message and give me a brief bio of them and say, hey, we're John and Julie Brown. We're in Connecticut. We're semi-retired. We have $500,000 in the bank. We have 6 properties, blah, blah, blah. We're in good health. What are our options to come to New Zealand? And I will ask them some questions and I'll get back to them and say, hey, based on your situation, you may, I always use the word may rather than will, you may be
Mm-hmm.
eligible for these types of visas. And if they say, okay, we like option A, can you investigate that a bit more for us? So then we will say, okay, let's investigate that a bit more, find out a bit more about your health, find out a bit more about your finances, find out a bit more about where you want to go, find out more if we need to get any of your qualifications assessed, and then sort of build a case for them. And this little things can throw you up. If you've had a tumor removed, and it's cleared up, that could have an impact on whether they let you in or not. There's certain, you have to meet the ASH, they call it, acceptable standard of health, and that's quite tight for resident visas. You have to prove that you're not going to be a burden to New Zealand. So there are some things. I had a lady, she had a mole removed and it was cancerous, and that she was refused to come in because the doctors couldn't guarantee 100% that it wasn't going to come back. So there's, you have to do your due diligence, and I have to ask the hard questions about your health and your life and your finances. Also for finances, I mean, with the anti-money laundering stuff that's going around the world right now, if you're going to invest in this country or you're going to bring in a significant amount of money, you need to prove to me and I need to prove to the government where it came from. And if there's no paper trail, you can't be a Mexican drug lord and say, hey, I've got $20 million in the bank. I want to move to New Zealand. And I say to you, well, show me where the money came from. And you can't, then you don't get in.
It's in my closet. It's fine.
Yeah. I found it in a suitcase in my car here. So there are some peculiarities that need to be looked at, but yeah, that's what I do for everybody. I just look at their individual case and say, hey, you may be able to apply for this, and I maybe have to find things that they haven't thought about. Let's use your wife's qualifications because she's better qualified for you. Let's do something else. So
No,
yeah.
that's great, and that makes sense because with so many options, it's easy to think we're going to go one way, and without knowing all the details and specific things that can change. So, David, if people wanted to get in touch with you, how is the best way, or where can they reach out to you?
So you can email me, david@visavisa.co.nz. You can go to my website, www.visavisa.co.nz, or I'm sure we can put some links, Sally, in the...
Absolutely. I will have links in all of the show notes for this for sure. So people can easily just click on it and get in touch with you.
So I'm on, I get a bit confused. I'm on Zallo, I'm on WhatsApp, I'm on Viber, I'm on Instagram, I'm on normal mailing. So yeah, I get a bit confused sometimes, but I prefer emails because I've got a path. Or if people want to hit me up on WhatsApp, they can do that and we can send messages backwards and forwards. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, we'll make sure that we get those links in the show notes. And I just want to say thank you very much for your time, David. I really appreciate it. I know the listeners got some valuable information. And for those of you who are thinking of going to New Zealand, absolutely get in touch with David and he can help you out to make sure that you are on the right track and get the right visa if it's possible for you.
Yeah, thanks, Sally. I mean, I love it here, and I love my job. I love opening up New Zealand to people, and the greatest thing is giving someone a permanent visa and saying, hey, here's your visa, welcome to New Zealand. New Zealand is your new home, and that creates me a huge amount of joy. That's why I do the job. So thanks for your time, and I look forward to hearing from the viewers and the listeners, and making their dreams come true.